All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's 7 a.m. This was an insanely long series. I am completely out of gas, so I'm not gonna do justice for these games. I think they deserve to be gone through because we had some immortal games. When I say immortal games, it's like some of the craziest performances ever that I saw from like a Western player and inspired. Flyquest in the opening game, I thought Bilibili is gonna be able to cook it. I thought Bilibili is gonna be able to make it happen. I thought I saw a Nikon on who's hasn't lost a single time. I saw an Aurora Zinzao skirmish with Bilibili, with Flyquest having lanes that they need to dominate, and I was worried. But in this one, Beishwan misplayed a gank heavily. Sejuani got ahead. Double Giant's belt. His spide was a Giga Chad. His gank timers and how he team fought was some. This was one of the best Sejuani games I've ever seen from any player ever. That's how deep it is. Most Sejuani games that are like insane are usually like gank heavy, and it just means that he snowballed the shit out of the map. We saw like some Tian angles, we saw like Yankos or whatever, but this was like on a mechanical level in terms of fight understanding and how he played around the leverage of his health and heart steel and so forth. Absolutely brilliant. I think Bwipo had a fantastic performance too on the Aatrox. Aatrox Sejuani got ahead, and there was no coming back from that. In game two, I think Bilibili just had a very, very good standard draft. Be worried that maybe they don't know how to play the pacing of this one. But in this one, Rel and Koki won the 2v2 against Kalista Renata. And if Kalista Renata don't have prior on this lane, it's just GG. There was a swap timer where Kalista opened on mid and Annie TP'd bot. Annie went bot and got giga chunked and lost all health. And this Nexus literally exploded at 6 minutes into the game. Because Bilibili got one dragon. They were ahead on bot, ahead on Victor. Victor had a freeze. And it's just GG. Like, that's how fragile this composition is. It needs to snowball through bot. Kalista Renata has been discussed so much, but Kalista as a champion has been nerfed way too much. Plain and simple. She doesn't do enough damage. If you look at her patch history, she has been completely decimated. Absolutely decimated. Someone mentioned in the chat, Knight had a 4-level lead on quad. Yeah, because there's nothing for you to do as an Annie if you are behind. You can't lane, you can't farm, you can't do shit. Can't do nothing. Can't do nothing, man. Can't do nothing. Bilibili versus Fly game 3. I think that Flyquest were very, very greedy in the draft. Like in this one, Flyquest need to fucking overperform so hard. And I said it while we were watching it, that the only way Fly win is if they get to 4 items. And somehow, even though Bilibili were giga snowballing with 6k gold ahead, 7k gold ahead, On decided to, you know, make it interesting. On sprinted into the enemy team over and over and over and over and over again. I didn't exaggerate the amount of times I said over. I used the appropriate amount because 5 times in a row, he just ran it down. The fuck down. Teammates weren't around. He was looking for hooks that nobody could connect with. It was mental what he was dropping on the Rift. And in the end, Flyquest tried to look for a game-ending push. And the sad part is, you know, they tried to look for that squeeze. But the truth is, Flyquest already outscaled at that point. They had Nash advantage and they had 4 or 5 items on their carry. Senna range was getting completely apocalyptic. They could have chosen not to go for that Nasher and then just play out the game because the draft had reached Nirvana. But instead they went for a game-ending push. They got cleaned up by Elk on the Kaiser, and none was the wiser. Coming into game number 4, I think the most impressive performance from Flyquest as a whole. I think Bucio's Bard is extremely special because he was catching people left and right. Set here, even though he got solo kill because of Boots advantage and Set misplayed in one moment, his game Giga recovered because Trundle and Bard just kept finding gank angle after gank angle after gank angle onto this Yorick, and then everyone was in the loop. Knight tried his best to carry and he overplayed his hand a couple of times, similar to Caps. I feel like Knight's experience here on Bilibili is very similar to Caps, but at least Caps here on this team has a really good AD and Elk that on occasion is also pulling his way and on too. But of course, Beishon and Bin have been awful this tournament, you know. Hui, I think Quad on the majors has looked good because I think that's something that people want to talk about, right? I think Quad, when he plays majors that are good in lane, Oriana, Hui, I think that's his strength. But other than that, I think that Quad has been very mediocre at this tournament, you know. I think, you know, the tough part for the West, right, is that, like, people are going to talk about the Tabe interview and say that these players don't work hard enough or whatever. The thing is, even when I was in teams, right, I was in teams, we work 12, 14 hours a day. We do. It's just a question of two things, right? Two very important things that people don't, like that people mention, but are very important to highlight. The conditions you practice under and the resistance you feel both in solo queue and scrims really, really changes how rapidly you can improve. Second, as well, the snowball effect of having great teams and reaching a point where you beat those great teams really, really matters too. The transition of power, let's say, within regions is super, super important. Because if you look at Flyquest, Flyquest wouldn't become what it was if it wasn't for competition pushing it. Team Liquid in Spring Split on the Flyquest come-up beat them. And Flyquest, even though they went to MSI, decided to make changes bringing in Quad from, I believe, their academy team, to then ramp up and then to beat Team Liquid in the finals. The transition of power in Europe this time around, I think KC and Koi are fantastic. Like, if you think about KC and Koi, how they played last year in comparison to this year, KC and Koi are fantastic to have in the league. Rogue being out, Navi coming in, these are good things for the league. G2 downgrading heavily made the transition of power a little bit more awkward. So obviously the winner of the league isn't going to be as great as a team that would beat the G2 of the previous year, which I think is important to highlight. When a team makes downgrades, like when your number one team makes downgrades, the same way like in the LPL, Bilibili made downgrades, it hurts the region. Because the teams that are ramping up and on the come up, they have a different standard to then succeed to actually qualify to competition. And my point is, some things take time. Some things take time. And if you are impatient and you blame things that seem simple to you, you're not going to make it. GenG somehow made an upgrade and LCK looks worse. I think partially overall level globally is worse because of Fearless. I think that's also important to highlight. But there is no way LCK is worse if you compare it regionally. Last year, before MSI, we had, of course, you know, T1 and GenG looked monstrous coming into MSI. T1 and GenG. That finals that they played in spring was tremendous. But I do think Fearless lowers the level of everything. It's just that sometimes things take time and people want to change everything and remove everything, but sometimes things just take time. LCK, guys, between 2018 and 2019, they were suffering. But they gave Griffin time. They gave Damwon time. And these guys eventually ramped up and became staples of what is Korean League of Legends. Because those names, Viper, Lehends, Chovy, Canyon, Showmaker, they of course ushered in a new era of League of Legends. Battle, you know, that's a new era of League of Legends. And it took time. It took time. So while everyone's talking about everything that you need to change and everyone needs to be fired and everyone needs to be kicked and people need to work harder, there's a little bit of truth in all of that. But it's very important in the process of trying to ramp up and doing things better that you don't dismiss and kick and destroy everything that is actually good. The reason I didn't mention Tarzan is because he went over to the LPL, but obviously Tarzan is fucking crazy as well, right? Certain things take time. And I think Casey and Koi, very good for the league. What can you point to that isn't vague as a problem for Europe? Fnatic, being an org with so much legacy, that they made changes now where the amount of data that you have coming into this year, like what new data did you find out? The way Fnatic split ended was exactly the same as 10 other splits ended the previous years. Imagine they came into this year and they switched, let's say, their mid laner. And let's say Humanoid went to a different team and he would be really motivated and he would be super happy. Imagine Humanoid, Kazi are reunited on Vitality and maybe he would find insane form because he is in a different dynamic that isn't draining him. The same thing for Razork. Maybe, let's say they hired Jackies over to Fnatic as an example. And then maybe upset Mickey Jackies would have been insane, right? Fnatic, you can point to a problem because they have left. Like if you compare this year of Europe to last year, this year is way better. Much, much better. It's not even close how much better it is. Because last year, Fnatic was the second best team and they always shat the bed. They lost to Team Liquid and whatever, right? Always shat the bed. And they were the second best team in the league. And this year we have Casey and Koi who have ushered in players that other teams are not using or would have used. They found Vladi, they found Kalist. They brought back Kana. They brought back Kana, man. Kana's redeemed and he's now the best top laner in the league. This is what you want. Last year, G2 made everyone blind to the problems of Europe. But this year has been a step in the right direction. But the only issue is what I mentioned about Fnatic, and second, G2 made downgrades. They made significant downgrades. But if you want a team to break top levels, like a G2 roster with Mickey X or Caps, like these players are legendary players. If you want players to reach that peak, you need to give them time. Like for example now, Alvaro is showing a lot of fucking promise. Vladi is showing a lot of promise. Kalista is showing a lot of promise. That's good. That's you're actually creating elite players, you know? But they need to understand, they need to also figure out how to be consistent. They need to figure out all of these details about, you know, year over year churning out fucking fantastic performances. That takes mastery and time. Casey and Koi are great for the league, right? But G2 made downgrades and Fnatic is just poorly ran. But last year was even worse for Europe. It's just people were blinded because they almost beat Bilibili and lost 10k gold lead against T1. But G2 was an outlier. So when people tell me being competitive doesn't matter, it does matter. It does matter. Because the same thing happened in LTA. Team Liquid ramped up. They figured things out. They used players people wouldn't utilize. They found fantastic use for Yeon, who looked terrible the previous year with Pioshik and Summit and so forth. They rebuilt around APA, Yeon, Code JJ and brought in Umti, and then they won Spring Split somehow by some miracle. And then Flyquest got pushed, and now C9 is getting pushed, and they're trying to race to beat, of course, you know, C9 is racing to beat Flyquest. And obviously performance fluctuates and so forth, but that ramping up of competition is super important. And it's like I'm like in terms of course Europe, like I think what Team Heretics is doing is interesting enough, right? They bring in some new names, Stand is playing, you know, they have that Carlson guy in the top lane. They're trying to have their own spread. SK is bringing in EMA Masters winners, giving them a chance and then selling them like Bukada now. He didn't win EMA Masters, Bukada sold to BDS. It's like some teams are trying to be a decent middle of the table team, right? They're trying, right? Because there's not enough talent in the league for it to be absolutely insane. Naknako is a good, interesting prospect. Chayek. I don't think EU is as trash as people make it out to be in the context of what EU is. The issue is the last couple of years of EU. That's the big problem. It takes a lot of time for a region to actually see the growth and the fruits of your labor. That's the problem. That is your problem. The fruits of your labor in 2019, okay? 2018, 2019, 2020, look at the beautiful momentum that was built up that was killed in the 2021 offseason. Murdered completely. Nemesis out, Perks out, Reckless to G2, G2 having all the big names, not making Worlds, not making MSI, right? We had Mad Lions. They ushered in a new generation, right? Humanoid, Elioya, these are fantastic fucking players. They have been relevant in the league for a very long time. But the transition wasn't the cleanest, right? The transition wasn't the cleanest. We lost Bwipo. We lost Inspired. Hansama went to North America and entered in Team Liquid, right? And then you gotta fucking start over in many ways, right? You start over in many, many ways. Like the butterfly effect of very, very big decisions matters a lot, guys. Matters a lot. And I think in this conversation where everyone on Twitter suddenly becomes the solution and they are saying the most arbitrary things. They need to work harder. They need to work harder, man. Book more scrims. Book more scrims. Book more scrims. Like, it's it's silly. Guys, there's definitely players that don't work hard that should be fired. There's players that work hard and they can't become good enough no matter how hard they work because they just aren't talented enough. No one even caught when Tabe said, you know, it's like Tabe said they practice from 1:30 to 5, 2-hour break, and then they scrim from 7 to 10, 12. So they have approximately 8 games. A lot of the LEC teams are playing 8 games. Bro said they don't eat breakfast, but the thing is, it sounds weird to your ears, but they just wake up late. That's all he meant. They play solo queue late because the games are better, and then they wake up late. So their breakfast is lunch. That's all. I love Tabe. I think he's a goated coach. But the reaction to that interview, like people were reacting as if like an alien came down to Earth and showed us how to make flying saucers, man. But I get it. I get what people are saying, guys. I get where that comes from. Your region sucks and you want it to be better. So you want a quick solution, a quick fix, because you just experienced MSI and the West ate a big dick. I get that. But things like this is not a quick fix because the legacy of Korea and also China, right, as regions, the legacy is the legendary players that have played so long. If Korea's legacy is fucking Faker and he's still playing to this day and he churned out fucking through inspiring players like Chovy, Showmaker, BDD, Zeka, if like these are players that get to scrim against Faker. These are players that get to play against Faker. You know how broken that is? You queue up solo queue on a Tuesday with your balls out and you're playing against Faker. And obviously that bleeds to everything else. The legacy and the standard sets a bar. And building that legacy and standard takes time. Guys, remember something that was so pathetic about Europe? 2 years ago, Roma needed to shame teams into not cancelling scrims. People were cancelling scrims. They were cancelling scrims. That's the legacy. And G2, as the flagship team, changed this trend. Koi jumped on it. Casey as well, right? Together you can move mountains, right? Rogue being out, fantastic, guys. Fantastic that Rogue is out. Na'Vi, I'm sure they are very ambitious coming into next year. Very ambitious. What legacy does EU currently have other than caps? Mickey. Mickey. Reckless perks, my man is mentioning people that are not playing. Wunder, Reckless, Perks, Nemesis. Yeah, you notice the problem? You notice the problem? Bwippo, inspired. Yeah, do you notice the problem, you know? So rebuilding takes time, guys. Rebuilding takes time. This takes time. Building a region that is competitively powerful takes fucking effort and time, bros. CFO, they're all playing Korean solo queue. Already that is massive. And also, the LCP, people still need to stop fucking calling the LCP a minor region, for the love of God. They have combined every fucking region over there, right? Bring the best teams from all of the smaller regions into one fucking region. People need to stop calling the LCP a minor region, all right? They're a major region just as any other fucking major region, all right? They comboed and they got the best team from Japan, from Vietnam, from Taiwan, you know, all that jazz. Stop calling it a fucking minor region. It's not a minor region. They have some competitive aspects that are super interesting too. They have competitive advantages that are really cool. Their geographical location is really, really good. And also, like, they have pretty fucking decent decent player bases to take away from, you know? They also get the scrim versus Vega. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So it's like, in order for you to build up your own ecosystem, you need to have just 10 teams that are very ambitious. And are ambitious in their own way. And then, of course, guys, if your legacy organizations in G2 and Fnatic inted so hard, then yeah, your region's gonna fucking suffer. That's just how it is. But there are good things about Europe that will build over time and become something over time. I think everyone's just too short-sighted. Too short-sighted. Fly would get 3-0'd by AL. They literally played at this fucking tournament. They played at this tournament. All right. So yeah, game 5. You want me to point fingers in this game 5, guys? Game 5? Well, we didn't talk about game 4. This was a crazy Trundle performance. Bard, set. Oh, we talked about it, I guess. This game 5. At this point, you know, you are fucking going so deep. But this Galio first pick is just genius. It blocks out Rumble takeaway. It is flexing to top. And also with Cassiopeia, Azir, Orianna out, with only mid laners left are like either really goofy ones, some deep cuts, or like Zillion, or like it's like Silas, Akali, Syndra, which all sucks against Galio. This is just straight up a very similar Galio lock-in to the one we saw at Worlds, where Faker just slammed Galio game 5. Finally, Bilibili's demons are useful to them. Isn't the issue it might not be enough time for you to build up again? Yeah, bro, like, if it's not financially viable, like, who cares? Like, well, if League is on a timer, then it is what it is. It's cooked. It's cooked. Swain could be interesting here. Maybe you can find, but keep in mind here, it's like here you need to find something that's comfortable, you know? But yeah, when you pick Zillion into Galio, you can be like, oh, I'm gonna scale super good. But the thing is, Galio is gonna be able to roam the whole map, push mid. He's going to win the lane, and he's going to be like cook you completely, you know? So they are just picking comfortable champions they're comfortable with. Plain and simple. They're just picking champions they're comfortable with, and that's it. Lee Sin, I was hoping that Inspired would take like a bigger charge in this game, you know. Maybe they pick Leona in the 1-2 and, you know, match the Galio lock-in, something like this. Swain could be interesting, yeah. Swain could be interesting. But yeah. GenG versus T1, let's round off there. Let's round off there, guys. Let's round off there. GenG versus T1. GenG versus T1. So Faker looked good against Knight in that series against Bilibili. But Chovy has been quite quiet this tournament. I think if Chovy decides to lock in, I think this should be super, super easy for GenG. But Chovy has been quiet and Faker has been good against Bilibili. He had a very terrible series against CFO, so he has that in him, right? But Keen, tremendous, absolutely monstrous. I take Keen over the boy. Duro versus Keria is super exciting because both of them have had a fantastic tournament. Duro has been insane, especially that AL series. Absolutely crazy how he played that series. Insanely impressive how he played that series. He deserves a lot of praise for that. Like, Duro was monstrous in that AL series. Keen as well on the carries. I feel like Keen has a better range of playing, which I think matters. Canyon versus Owner. Every time they played, Canyon has played better than Owner this year, which matters. Right? Really, really matters. Canyon has been in Owner's head, but T1, you know, there's something special about them. They've always beaten GenG at internationals. There's history there, right? At Worlds, once at MSI apparently 2023 because the format was so trash. I think GenG should win this. I think like 3-1 is my expectation, but there's a lot of like measurable intangibles, you know? Which makes these intangibles tangible in a way. Is Keen the best top lane in the world right now? I think so, yeah. I think Keen is in the running. I think Keen, Shanks, and Inspired are Keen, Knight. Like basically, like if I'm gonna look at MVP candidates, if I'm going to just take one from every team that is left, it's like Shanks, Keen. Inspired is not left anymore, but like he deserves a shout out in the MVP conversation. Shanks, Keen, Inspired. I think Keria. Keria is a crazy motherfucker. Keria, Owner. I think these are the two guys. I think Owner was so good, guys. He was so good. Like these guys can share. I'm just thinking about the teams that are left. Knight. Dogo. If I need to take someone from all of the teams, you know. Like these guys, like, bro, what a crazy team we have here, guys. Imagine we make a team of these guys. There's no AD, Amaro. Yeah, Knight or Shanks are playing AD. Who cares? We think we need an AD player, bro. Anyhow, we want to talk about T1's entries. I think T1 prep has been pretty damn good. T1 prep, GenG prep. I think the Tomata combo, the Tom-Mata combo. Tomata better than Coach Kim and Helper. I'm going to say it, give it to you straight. T1 prep, they get a plus point for that. Plus point for that. Keria, Owner, playing really, really good. But they need to have the series. They need to have the best series of their life to beat GenG. Like, they need to top themselves in miraculous ways. They need to somehow top themselves, which is an impossible demand. But that's what needs to happen. Because keep in mind, they are playing against Canyon and Duro. To overperform in that context is a really big ask. But I think really this is what it comes down to. And then you hope that Chovy doesn't have a good series and Faker brings the same performance as he did in the Bilibili series. But GenG should be favored. I think 3-1 GenG.